Well, who are you? What do you do? Where are you from? Tell me about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Hunter Rivera, and I'm the newly elected chairman of the Weld County Republican Party. I live here in Windsor, Colorado. I've lived in Windsor my entire life, all 22 years.
You were
So
born here.
I was born here. I was
Wow.
born in Fort Collins and have
Yeah.
grown up in the same exact house. So, yeah, I've lived with my grandparents my entire life. So I live currently it's just me and my grandfather
Okay.
over in Windsor. But yeah.
Are you comfortable telling me why your grandparents and not your parents?
It's just when I was born, my mom was living with my grandparents. So,
Okay.
we've just always been with my grandparents.
Was she young?
Yeah, relatively. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Was
she's
she married
relatively-
or?
No, I was born out of wedlock, I guess. And,
Gotcha.
yeah, never really knew my dad or anything. So,
Interesting. Have you met him even today?
no,
Never met him.
No,
Have
no.
you ever been curious about
no,
that?
never had a desire to meet him. Not at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What would that be like?
Yeah, no, my grandfather's my biggest father figure in my
Yeah.
life. So he filled that void pretty good.
Yeah,
So
that's amazing. I would think even if I hate the guy or think he's a piece of crap for not sticking around, I think I would still have some part of me that would be like, I at least want to meet the guy. But I mean, maybe I've never been in that situation. So
yeah, I mean, just
Yeah.
never been.
you got to keep going.
Yeah,
There's nothing
yeah.
you can do about it at this point. But
Yeah.
okay, so I watched your interview with I forget the lady's name, but you had a radio interview recently.
Oh yes. With
Can you
Mandy
tell me
Kondo.
briefly about that, and then
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, I recently got to go on to Mandy Connell's show. She's on it was a 850 KOA,
Okay.
which is a great station. But yeah, I recently went on there because we made waves over in Weld County. I actually
Sure.
was it depends on who you ask. According to my central committee, I was elected over a month ago in February. If you ask the Colorado Republican Party, I was elected just this last Saturday.
Right.
We had a massive controversy where the state GOP tried to interject themselves in our county central committee process. They tried to appoint a slew of a bunch of different, they're called precinct committee folks. Those precinct committee folks get voting rights at our central committee.
Yeah.
And less than 30 days before our central committee meeting in February, the state chair just up and decided to appoint about 40 of these individuals.
Yeah.
And it was very suspect given the timing on it. So
Yeah.
our committee didn't take too lightly to that. We thought we had, appeased the state GOP with our course of actions in our February meeting. We ended up not appeasing them, and they ended up going through this controversy process. And basically the state chair and the executive committee, about 25 individuals, just up and decided, none of which live in Weld County, decided to invalidate my election. They said I was not the chair, I was
Right.
illegitimately elected, and made us completely redo our reorganization meeting.
So long story short, sounds like what happened. You were elected
Yep.
duly.
Yep.
I'm assuming you followed all the procedures.
Yep.
It was legitimate.
Absolutely.
There wasn't
Absolutely.
you didn't stuff any ballot boxes or
No.
anything. Okay.
No, nothing like that. No.
So that's on the county level. And then Dave Williams
Yep. The
is
state
the
GOP chair.
state GOP chair, came in and removes you as chairman illegitimately.
Mhm.
And then you were reinstated. Did you have to vote again?
Oh yeah. We had to
Okay.
hold a whole nother county central committee meeting. Believe me, my people were furious that they had
Yeah.
to give up 2 Saturdays in 1 month. I mean, yeah, and those things don't take a couple hours. I mean, I got to the gym on this last Saturday. I got there at I think around 8:30, and then we didn't end up going home until almost 5.
Okay.
So it's not a short day kind of deal.
And so when I had asked you to come on the show maybe 2 weeks ago, all this happened like since then.
Yeah.
So when I asked you to come on, you were elected. Seemed like everything was going good. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, this happens. Now you're reinstated. So did he ever give? First of all, it pisses me off, and I think it goes to show why Colorado Republicans aren't able to get anything done. It's like you're literally overriding the will of the people.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, did he give any type of justification or reasoning behind him just removing you?
Well, I guess I should say, so the deal is that the state chair has the authority to appoint these precinct committee folks. And it's actually really kind of interesting because it's part of it, I say almost an antiquated law, because it was like the third thing listed in the state statute that gives them the authority to do it. So obviously we inspected it and we looked into it, and it clearly says that us as the county central committee get final say on whether or not to allow those people that he recommended to be part of our county central committee. Our only requirement under state law and under party bylaws was to hold that vote during a central committee meeting. We scheduled it on a central committee meeting at our February 8th meeting, and an individual who ended up giving him the list of names to appoint as PCPs filed a controversy, went through a controversy process, and the state GOP's reasoning for their first ruling that they gave onto us was that it was unfair of us to put the ratification of those PCPs to be considered after we were going to vote on all of our new membership, which made sense to us. And, you know, like I said, under party rules, the chairman has the prerogative to do that. And the state GOP, you know, started to insert themselves more and more into our county process. When we got to our February 8th meeting, instead of unilaterally moving that agenda item to the top of our agenda, like the state GOP mandated us to do, we asked our central committee. The state GOP told us to do this. We're going to come to you as the members of our committee. Are you willing to move it to the top of the agenda? There was somebody who made that motion. It was seconded. When we voted on it, it was overwhelmingly shot down by the committee. And they said, we're going to keep it where it is, and we're not going to do it at the beginning of our agenda like the state wants us to.
Okay.
Fast forward, after the meeting, I get elected, all of our folks get elected. I think everything's all great and dandy. About 2 days later, state GOP ended up having a meeting. The meeting we were not aware of. They didn't invite us to it. They didn't give us an opportunity to give a response on why we did what we did or any of the events. It was a lopsided decision, and they just up and decided to invalidate our election. They null and voided my election, removed all of our officers, and then we also had bonus members who lost their seats as a result to that. And the biggest thing that gave me heartburn over that decision is it said even if we wanted to appeal the decision, we could appeal it to the larger body of the Republican Party, which is the state central committee. And he said even if we would have appealed it, he still would have come in and run another reorganization meeting. So I made the decision at some point to basically say, okay, Dave, you know, if you're going to come in and say that you're going to do this meeting no matter what, you're going to steamroll us, you know, I'm going to have some terms here. And so we ended up calling our own meeting, which we knew the state GOP wasn't going to like. And they didn't like it. And then that's when I started to negotiate and go back and forth with Dave on saying, you know, if you're gonna try to do this to us, you know, I'm not going to allow you to just steamroll us and have no say in
Sometimes
this.
you got to play hardball.
Well,
if people are trying to do that kind of stuff and invalidate things, I think illegitimately, like you just got to stand up for yourself.
Well,
sometimes.
Exactly. You know, and my thing is anybody who knows me knows that I'm not a fan of Dave Williams. I was calling for Dave Williams's resignation as state party chair before it was cool to be calling for his resignation. So I am definitely not a fan of his. But you know, I didn't sign up for this position because I wanted to go fight him or go fight fellow Republicans. You know, my goal always has been, especially during my time as vice chair when I was, you know, against him as state chair, you know, it was always focused on the candidates. I'm not focused on what he's doing. I'm focused on the candidates. And I really wanted to leave them alone. And my hope is that they would leave us alone. But the fact that you have a state GOP coming in and telling a local county party how to run their elections, it's a little concerning. And I'm glad my county rejected what he was trying to do, because the thing is if he does it here in Weld County, he's going to do it.
If you set that precedent, he knows he can do that.
Well, exactly. Well, and look, and I supported her, but KBB, the chair, Christy Brown, who was the chair before Dave, she, you know, did something similar. There was a similar situation where they went in and they interjected themselves in the El Paso County reorganization.
Did she get away with it? Was she able to?
She got a lot of pushback, and the county ended up rejecting what her and her people were trying to do, and they got, you know, the same leadership.
So she was also unsuccessful.
Yeah.
In that. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So
good.
It's been rejected twice now, and you know, I was hoping that Dave would learn from some of those sins of his predecessor.
Well,
but,
and also who's the state to come in and say what's best for our county?
Well, exactly. Well, and the other ironic thing, you know, is our big thing. We pound our chests here in Weld County quite a bit. I'm very proud of it. As you know, in the state of Colorado, there were only 6 seats that flipped from Democrat to Republican, and 5 of those seats run through Weld County. We flipped 5 seats in this county, while in the rest of the state, they were only able to flip 1.
Right here,
and
bro.
So,
come on,
exactly.
Let's go.
It was great. It was a great effort. But you know, but for the state GOP that could only flip 1 other seat in the entire state of Colorado to come in and tell the county that flipped 5, yeah, there's some problems there.
Yeah, seriously. It's funny because the moment I found out that you had been removed, so before you got reinstated, but when I found out you were removed, because we had planned to do this already, I was gonna title it Chairman Hunter Rivera. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Yep.
I was still gonna title it that and basically just make it a big FU to Mr. Dave Williams. But luckily I didn't have to do that. So
Yeah. No. Yeah.
but okay, so you're 22 years old.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So tell me how you, in 22 years, you go from a little infant newborn baby to 22 years later, you're leading perhaps the most powerful Republican county in Colorado.
Yeah.
What does the journey to get there look like, and how did you make the connections necessary? Why would people trust, especially elected politicians and powerful people who are involved in the political sphere in our county? Why would they trust a 22-year-old to run it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of a long story for how we got here.
Yeah.
I would say that back when I was in elementary school and in school, the teacher always said, you can grow up and, put your mind to it. You can be anything you want to be, right? And I guess I took that a little bit to heart, especially when they go, you could be an astronaut, you could be a football player. And then they go, oh, you could be the president of the United States. And
you like that one?
I think that one stuck with me. And I mean, that was kind of always in the back of my head growing up. And then I took a political science class at my high school, and the professor was super liberal. It was 2016, right in the middle of the election. We didn't agree on anything, but she ended up happened to be friends with Senator John Cook, who had just gotten elected over in Senate District 13 back then. And he was the former county sheriff, newly elected state senator, invited our class down to the state capitol.
Your teacher was friends with him, you said?
Yes, yep. And we went down to the state capitol, and I just remember sitting up in the state senate gallery, and I was like, wow, looking around. I'm like, this is where I would want to be. I guess most kids went to the Capitol when they were in elementary school.
The gold leaf dome.
The gold dome. Yes.
That's what I remember.
Yes. Most kids get to go when they're, in elementary school. And I never got that opportunity until I was in high school. And when I went there, I was just like, there's something bigger about this. There's something more than just me. That I can tell from just being in this building. And I felt like, being part of something greater than I am was something that was really calling me, just as a freshman in high school.
Sure.
Like I said, that kind of lingered in the back. And then in 2020, actually, when I was a senior in high school, I was looking around and going, okay, well, I'm
Real quick,
almost,
wait, pause.
Yeah.
Did the teacher connect you with Senator Cook?
A little bit. I mean,
Okay.
I got to know Senator Cook back then a little bit, but I mean, it wasn't anything crazy, not compared
Just
to
kind
how
of like
our
a
relationship
handshake.
now.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was super cool. I mean, I got to meet him at the Capitol, and he came to our school and got to ask him questions. And
That's
the
awesome.
really cool one was, again, as I don't even know 15 years old. He set up a meeting with us and Governor John Hickenlooper, and and that was so cool. Because I'm a little kid,
Yeah,
I mean, John Hickenlooper,
it's the governor.
That's my governor.
Yeah,
I didn't know anything back then. But fast forward to my senior year in high school.
He likes John Hickenlooper. No.
I would very much like to see him get unseated here in a couple of years. I'm very much looking forward for a good Republican. Oh, I know. Fast forward to my senior year in high school, and I was looking around going, okay, I'm going to turn 18, I'm able to get involved. So what can I get involved with? And I ended up looking at my city council. My city council seat wasn't up, but the mayor's seat was.
Okay.
And you only have to
In
be
Windsor.
18 to run for mayor in Windsor. So looking back on it, it was the dumbest decision I ever made. I pulled a petition, and I got my name on the ballot and ran for mayor over in Windsor. I got about 700 votes, lost to Paul Rennemeyer, who got about 7,000 votes. And, that was my introduction in politics.
Yeah.
When
I actually, real quick on that, I actually remember reading about it in the paper.
Yeah.
And being like, who the heck is this guy? 18-year-old thinking he's going to run Windsor? Like, I just remember, like, how arrogant. Like, what the heck is this kid doing?
Yeah.
And But obviously, you knew more than the average person about politics, probably even at that age.
Well, I would say not even really. I was honestly looking back I was pretty stupid back then compared to, I didn't know anything. I thought if you were the mayor, you were like the president, you were the go-to guy in the town. You did everything. And, I quickly found out, that's not the case.
Most people don't even know who the mayor is. Yeah.
Well, exactly. And, very quickly learned about municipal government and how, the town of Windsor operated. So it was a great learning experience in that regard. And
did Paul end up winning his election this year? Do you know?
No, he did not. He ended up losing in the primary for county commissioner.
Gotcha.
But, got involved, have stayed involved in Windsor politics. I actually really like local politics now in a lot of ways, and I really like, municipal government.
Yeah.
And
It's got to feel sweet, though, how the tide turned. He loses his election. You win your election. Come on, man. Let's go.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, me and Paul, I don't think had the friendliest of relationships when we started out, but I will say I've come quite a bit to respect Paul.
Was there a
especially over the last few
debate
years.
for the mayor? race?
because we were in the middle of COVID.
That's right.
So our town or our debate was scheduled like, the last week of March. And I think
They
the
didn't
week
even do
before
like a
was when
Zoom
COVID hit.
debate or anything.
No. I mean, that was
Interesting.
right as COVID hit. So like
Wow.
everybody was like, what's going on?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Huh.
So that was my introduction into politics. Doing that, I met all kinds of folks. One of the individuals I met was Barb Kirkmeyer, who was my county commissioner at the time. I didn't know she was running for state senate or anything, and we just had coffee. I talked to her one time, didn't think much of the conversation. Then come December of 2020, she had won her election. I was filling out an application to be a House aide, and she literally texts me as I'm filling out my application. She's like, "Hey, do you want to be my aide in the Senate?" And I'm like, "That's perfect. I'll absolutely do that." So ended up doing that for the last, I worked for her for about four sessions. And ended up helping her down there. So.
And then were you were in college at that time?
So I briefly went to college for a while. So I did a semester at Ames for a while, and then winter of last year I was at UNC for a semester.
For one semester, okay.
Yep.
Do you remember any of your professors' names? Because that's where I went to college. I honestly, I don't even remember. I can't.
Well, I know
if you said the name, I would recognize it.
Well, I only had 3 in-person classes
Okay.
when I was there, and I know 2 of them were brand new professors, like they had been hired in the last couple of years. But
Gotcha.
You definitely know Michael Welsh. He was a history professor. Is a history professor.
I don't know. Well, if it's history, maybe I didn't have him for political
okay.
science. I'm not sure.
Okay, interesting.
Welsh.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember.
No,
that
I
name,
know. Like
but-
even I have a friend who's about 30 years older than me, and I've brought up that name, and he's like, "Oh yeah, he was my professor too."
Wow,
so,
crazy.
Yeah, he's been there forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But ended up dropping out of college last year just because I ended up moving on and getting some campaign opportunities. So ended up running Yasmin Navarro's campaign for State Board of Education, and very proud of her. She's a great lady, and she's actually got elected as the vice chair of the State Board of Education. So we have a Republican vice chair in our State Board of Ed, which is awesome. And then also helped run Ryan Gonzalez's campaign over in House District 50.
Heck yeah.
So, yeah.
So how did you position yourself in such a way? Is this a self-nomination, or do other people have to nominate you for this position, or how does that work?
Well, I mean, anybody, I took the initiative to come forward and say, I want to do this. This is something that I definitely want. I mean, at the meeting, you have to get somebody to get up and nominate and second you. And I was...
you won 75% of the vote?
Yeah.
Were there any other contenders for it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was one other individual who was nominated for the position, and I got 75% of the vote.
And how did you convince 75% of the electorate that you were the right person for the job as opposed to the other person? And were you already like pretty well known at that point in that circle?
I was the first vice chair before that for the Weld County Republican Party. And I mean, when I got
Tom Van Loan.
Yep.
Is that okay?
He was the previous chair. I served under him for the last 2 years, and a lot of respect for Tom. But when I stepped up to run for first vice chair 2 years ago, I said, we have a very clear goal here, right? We only have to do 5 things. We have to elect somebody in House District 19. We have to elect somebody in House District 50. We have to elect somebody in Congressional District 8. We have to elect somebody into that Board of Education seat, and we have to elect somebody into Senate District 13.
Yep.
If we don't do any of those 5 things, we absolutely failed. And if we fail at any of those 5, it's an absolute failure. So our goal was to flip those 5 seats from the outgo. And going throughout this election process, I felt good about our chances in a lot of those races. I thought we were going to come short in one of them. And as you know, we ended up flipping, all 5 of them. I think from that, a lot of folks know that I was very much involved with a lot of those. Like I said, I was directly involved with Yasmin and Ryan's campaigns. But, I was working constantly with Dan Woog. I led Dan Woog's cure effort after the election to make sure that he won that election. And then I was also talking almost every single day with Scott Bright's campaign and Gabe Evans's campaign.
Okay.
So
Heck yeah.
That's where I got a lot of respect, I think, from folks.
And you had said when you were the vice chair that you had already been kind of public about your disdain or your, about Dave Williams. I was wondering what about him or what he's doing do you not agree with? And then second part to that question, have you guys had a conversation since all this went down? And
Yeah. So where it started was when I started calling for his resignation was, I believe, around January or February of last year. And that was when he announced his run for Congress down in the 5th Congressional District. I think it is really, really unethical for a sitting party member, such as a state party chair, to stay in their position as state party chair and also run for a partisan office.
Is that because he could allocate more money to himself?
Well,
or-
exactly.
Okay.
I mean, so like there's different things that the state GOP gets that other organizations can't get. For example, the state GOP gets discounted rates in terms of sending out mailers
Okay.
and stuff. So, I mean, that's a big advantage that he gets. Now, let me ask you, if you're Jeff Crank in his campaign, who was running against Dave Williams in that primary, are you going to feel very good about going to the state GOP and saying, hey, if you're going to give Dave this, or you're going to give me this,
Right.
you might not be met with the most friendly thing there. And I really believe that, the role of the county party in primaries is to be a level playing field. If we're going to give one candidate something, we're going to offer it
Right.
to another candidate. I don't believe in endorsing. I don't believe in picking favorites. So initially it had to go along the lines of him announcing his campaign for CD5.
Yeah, well, just a quick point on that.
Yeah.
It defeats the entire purpose of the primary. The purpose of the primary is to battle it out and the best rise to the top. But if one starts out up here, that it destroys the purpose of the primary.
Exactly. Well, and I would say that where Dave Williams, and that's the side that I'm on, is, whoever ends up winning the primary, that's our candidate. That's
Right.
the best that we can come up with, because hypothetically, you get the best people in that district who can possibly run for that seat, and whoever comes out on top, that's our best.
Yeah.
That's my mentality. That's how I see our primaries. Now, I would say that Dave Williams's wing of the party is definitely much of the mentality of those who win the primaries are not the most ideologically pure candidates. Therefore, they're not worthy of our support. And, I don't subscribe to the ideology of, if somebody doesn't agree with me and I don't agree with them 100% of the time, that we need to burn down the whole building because, we don't agree. I think if I agree with somebody 60% of the time, 70% of the time, and they're still a Republican, I'm still going to get behind them, because I'd rather have a Republican who votes with me 70% of the time than a Democrat who's going to vote against me 70% of the time.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And, and once we get to a level to where we're like Wyoming and, we have every statewide office, we have super majorities in the state house and state senate, then I'll talk about purifying the party. But until we get majorities, I don't even want to talk about
I love your attitude right now, because usually when I talk to state level Republicans, it's always kind of a defeatist mentality. It's like, oh, it's a blue state, we'll never quite get. I'm like, dude, not with that freaking attitude. Yeah. You have to operate under the belief that it's achievable. Mm-hmm. It's only like a 10-point gap, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's significant, but it's not insurmountable.
Mm-hmm.
And so
exactly.
I think if you just do everything, when you're playing everything safe and you just, I don't know. I do not appreciate the Colorado Republican mentality that says it's a blue state and there's nothing we can do about it. We'll never get back to a red state.
And that's totally wrong, by the way, to say that we're a blue state. As a whole, Colorado might not go, red for a presidential candidate, but I really do believe in the citizens of Colorado that they're sensible enough to, be able to disseminate that, there are some reasonable Republicans out there that are worthy to be elected here in this state. And I really believe that, if we put forward some good candidates for some of these statewide elections in 2026, I think we have a real opportunity to potentially pick up a seat in the AG's office. I think we have a chance to pick up a seat in the SOS's office. I think we have a chance to pick up a seat in the state treasurer's office. I think we have a lot of really great statewide opportunities, but I think it just is a matter of our party, getting its stuff together and being able to, have a platform that those candidates can leap off of and, feel supported once they get to the general election. But we also just need good messengers to go out to the people of Colorado, especially in Metro Denver, who can have a good conservative message and say, this is why Republican policies are working and this is why Democrat policies are failing the people of Colorado.
And then follow up to that, have you had a chance to smooth things over with Dave Williams? Do you want to smooth things over with him? Or is there something that he needs to do before you're ready and before you feel like it's valid to even, try to reconcile or what's the state of y'all's relationship right now?
Me and Dave I don't think maybe have ever spoken before this whole situation. We never really had a reason to. I've always communicated through Hope or Anna, the vice chair or secretary for the state GOP. When I chose to go the route we did to deal with the situation in the manner we did, I did call Dave at one point, and we had, I'd say, about a 20-minute conversation on the phone.
After you were reinstated?
No, before. This was before. And, we talked through things. I think he knows what my grievances are with the actions that he's taken. I certainly know what his grievances are with the actions that we took. I think we just are at an impasse, and I don't think we'll agree on much of anything there. And, where I'm at with it is that's fine. he's not going to bother me. I won't bother him. And,
Okay.
and he's gone. And, at the end of this month anyways. So
Gotcha. So have they already elected a new chair?
no. So that will be happening, I believe, on March 29th. At the end
And
of this
who
month.
would be a candidate that you think would be the best for
So
that
I've
position?
already endorsed Britta Horn. I believe she's a former Route County treasurer, I believe is what her position was.
Okay.
She's a firefighter, fire chief. I feel really strongly that, she has the connections to make sure that she can bring in money for candidates. I think she has a really good positive, mentality. She's definitely not that defeatist type where,
Okay.
it's just a blue state.
Yeah.
She thinks we can win. And
Good.
and I really feel passion from her. So I've endorsed her, and I'm hoping she wins.
Would you say if you had to go on the spectrum from like independent to most right wing person ever, like where would you say that she falls in there? And
For her?
Yeah, just kind of ideologically, like where would you say that she's kind of Lauren Boebert type, or is she more kind of, I don't even know a good example, but kind of more centrist?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a hard question to answer. I mean, I would say that, probably personally, she's definitely a very, very hardcore conservative. I would say, but she's definitely the type of conservative who understands that, maybe that certain types of Republican politics and certain types of Republican views, might not be the most popular opinion in some districts. So I would say she's a very conservative individual. She's a firebrand for sure, but she definitely understands the need.
Is she a good public speaker, would you say?
Yeah, I would definitely say so.
And by the way, if Lauren Boebert watches this, I'm not trying to say that you're like an extreme right-wing person. You are very solid and firm in your beliefs, but but no, I only brought that up to make the point that people perceive her as being very far right. I actually think she's not that far right.
Yeah,
but
I agree. I agree.
But it's more about the perception and the way that she speaks about it. But I actually love Lauren Boebert quite a bit.
Yep,
But
I'm right there with you. I think Lauren's great. Ever since she's moved to Windsor, she's been fantastic.
Yeah.
So we love Lauren.
yeah, before she came to Windsor, no, I'm kidding. Okay, so now that you are in power, what are the things that you are able to do now as chair of the Weld County Republican Party that you couldn't do before? Like what types of powers are you now granted in that position?
I will say that being the first vice chair, I felt very much like when it came to different decisions, I didn't feel like all the time that I was in the proper role to make certain calls or to make certain decisions. So, I was definitely, I felt much more obligated to go to Tom and the rest of the board and to say, hey, are you guys cool if I do this, or is this going to upset people? I think given, the percentage that I was able to win by, I think I have a very clear mandate to, go out and to be able to strengthen the party. And maybe I don't feel as reliant on asking for people's permission to do some stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where I'm at with it is I think what I've seen since I've been involved with the county party is, we haven't been the best at getting volunteers involved. So, I mean, what I'm really hoping to do is to bring in, create an organization. I mean, that's the biggest thing is Weld County's organization is just non-existent to a great extent. So we need to just create an organization to get people plugged in as volunteers and to say, what do you have to bring to the table? What can you offer us? And how's that going to help us get?
You got to have a ground game.
Exactly.
The Democrats are very good at the ground game.
They are. And we need to get with the times.
Yeah.
And I
sure.
actually wish there was a playbook almost, that the state GOP could give us, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
But
I call it a blueprint for a red Colorado.
Yes.
I actually proposed this to Heidi Ganahl before she actually launched her campaign for governor. But yeah, I mean, I have a pretty good, I feel like I have a pretty good idea of what we could do, but anyway.
So yeah, so I mean, where I'm at is I definitely want to work on our volunteer base. I think we can get a lot of folks involved. One of the things that we've been talking about in Weld County for years is we're very jealous of our neighbors to the west because the Boulder County and the Larimer County Republicans both have offices. The Weld County Republicans do not have an office.
Which is surprising because Weld County is like one of the biggest stronghold red counties.
Exactly.
You would think there would be a better level of organization. But.
Well, exactly. Well, and I will say, I think part of it, has to do with people got, a little apathetic about what was going on in Weld County. I mean, up until redistricting, Weld County was a solid red county. I don't think there was a single seat outside of House District 50 that, Democrats had a snowball's chance of ever flipping in Weld County. But, once the redistricting commission came in and threw us into all these different multi-county districts, because we're represented by the same people who are representing, parts of Larimer County, parts of Boulder County, parts of, Adams County, that kind of really messed with how the competitiveness of our districts were. So, it became a lot more competitive of an environment. So now it really was, our wake up call to go, okay, if we don't have our stuff together, which I would argue in 2022, we didn't, you can see the consequences of that.
Yeah.
And in 2022, 5 seats is what we lost. We had to, and coming into 2024, we worked on that organization a little bit. The campaigns that I worked on, we definitely built that organization kind of internally between the campaigns, separate from what the state GOP was doing. And, we were really able to build a good ground game to get those folks over the finish line. But we have to keep that going.
Right.
And it's actually going to be a lot harder, I think, in 2 years, because now that you have incumbents in office like Gabe Evans, I don't know if you have seen any of them, but I mean, there's already ads out there against him. I mean, we're way out from
already.
the election.
Wow.
There's already
That's wild.
anti-Gabe ads. So.
Yeah.
It's going to be an uphill battle for us for sure. But yeah.
That's the danger is when you live in a county that it always votes red. We don't have to worry about it. It's a done deal. We take it for granted. Done. It's easy to become complacent and kind of just over time it just deteriorates.
Yep.
But you have to at least maintain it, if not make it even stronger. But yeah, I mean, the danger of just kind of taking it for granted is always there. And I like the attitude of not just kind of coasting and letting it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I got very clear metrics. I mean, like I said, the first time I ran, I told my central committee we have 5 goals. We're going to hit all 5 of those things, flip those 5 seats. And I told my central committee again, going into 2026, we have 3 goals, and it's to keep CD8, it's to keep HD50, and it's to keep HD19. And if we lose any of those 3, then that's a big blow. If we lose HD50 or HD19, I mean, that could be the difference between the House Republicans, being in a super minority and not being in a super minority. And you talk about Gabe's seat. I mean, you're talking about, it's such a razor thin margin in the U.S. Congress right now. If Gabe loses his seat, you're talking about the potential of the Democrats winning a majority in the U.S. House of Representatives.
Right. Yeah,
and
that
that's
has
a big
national
deal.
implications.
It has national implications, and we need to and so a lot of that falls onto us as a county party.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. When Gabe's election was happening, and it took at least 2 weeks, right, to get the results. Dude, that was a nail biter. Yeah. Oh my gosh. The whole time I'm like, they're going to find some box of ballots in a closet somewhere. She's going to end up winning by, 5 votes or something stupid. Oh my gosh. I was just so nervous. And he pulled it off. I was like, yes, let's go.
Yeah. No, it was awesome. I'll tell you I worked for the state GOP / RNC back in the 2022 cycle. And I worked on Barb Kirkmeyer's campaign for the same district. And, it was a very close race, the same thing. But I remember, we were checking our phone as we were going out ballot curing for her. And we're like, are we closer? Are we closer? And sadly for us, it was the opposite of what happened to Gabe, where our numbers just kept growing farther and farther apart. Yeah. And it was a very rough thing. But I'll tell you too, with Gabe's race, I mean, all of us from Barb's campaign were texting each other in the fallout of Gabe's, and we're like, is he getting closer? Is he getting closer? Because, we were all kind of a little jealous. We're like, oh man, we were just 2 years too early. But, I wasn't too focused on what was going on with Gabe. Like I said, I ran Dan Woog's cure effort, and it was the same exact thing. I mean, his race, he ended up winning by, I believe, 116 votes.
Wow. Out of how many?
Margin.
At least several thousand.
Oh yeah. Probably upwards to 30 or 40,000.
Yeah.
So it was a very, very close race too. And the minority leader asked me to run the cure effort about a week before the election. I'm like, please don't come that close. And they came that close. But I remember, I think it was the Wednesday, the day after the election.
The cure effort, is that like vetting the ballots, or what is that?
So curing. So when you sign your ballot, if they reject your signature on it, then it goes into a cure period where you, as the individual who has a problem with your ballot, have to go in and basically say, yep, that's my signature. I did actually vote that ballot. And then at that point, the county clerk would accept that. But so when you're talking about,
you have to knock on the person's door and ask them?
We had people who were knocking on their door. We had people calling them. We were emailing them. We were texting them.
And this is all like fast paced. Like it has to be done quickly.
Because the deadline for it is, I believe, the Tuesday after the election. So 1 week from election day, I believe that's the deadline. So you have 1 weekend to hopefully catch these people at home. So I mean, we were literally going to the same houses like 4 or 5 times in those 7 days. But
That's
you know,
wild.
but it was a crazy thing. But yeah, but you have those cure efforts because I mean, you'll have 500 ballots that need to be
Right.
cured, and you have a race that's separated by 100 votes.
Yeah.
If you get all 500 people to cure their ballot, it might,
That can
change
mean the
outcome
difference.
of the race.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And my favorite thing about Dan's race was I think that Wednesday, the AP, the Associated Press, actually called the race for his opponent. And then the last dump that came out, I think on Wednesday or Thursday, he was up by barely 100 votes.
Yeah.
And I called him up and I'm like, man, you need to print this right now because they're still saying your opponent beat you and you have more votes right now.
In Dan Woog's district, they were?
Yeah.
They actually announced the opponent as the winner?
Yeah, the Associated Press, I believe the day after the election, called the race for his opponent, and he ended up, winning the seat by 100 and some votes. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah,
that is crazy.
And I think in El Paso County they had a district.
How can they do that? Is there any recourse?
Oh, no. I mean, they do it all based on predictions. I mean, they predicted that there was no way Dan could make up the gap between him and his opponent, and he did. And
that's amazing.
I didn't even think he could make up the gap. None of us thought he could make up the gap. I was on the phone with a consultant and I was like, there's no way he makes up the gap. And this guy's been doing politics for 30 years. He's like, he's not going to make up the gap.
Yeah.
An hour later, he made up the gap.
Boom.
So
let's go.
Yeah.
Oh my
so
gosh, that's amazing.
And well, and I mean, Dan was our second closest race. The closest race we had was down in El Paso County. And that one, we only won by 3 votes.
3 votes?
3 votes. We came down to one household, one house. That's who decided a state representative in this.
That's amazing. Anyone who says that their vote doesn't count.
Exactly.
It absolutely does.
Well, exactly. I always, whenever anybody talks about, your vote doesn't count, I always point to Loveland. Loveland has one of their city council wards. It's the most interesting city council ward ever because the last election in that ward, the guy who won by 1 vote. The 2 years before that, the gal who won in that district won by 1 vote.
That's insane.
Yeah, yeah. And that district is always close.
Yeah.
So
man, that's amazing. Okay, so how long are the terms for your position?
So I'm in here for 2 years. So I would be out in 2027.
And then what is your 2-year plan? Like I know you'd mentioned talking about organizing a better ground game, that kind of stuff. What are kind of some tangible things that you hope to accomplish like in the next 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, so aside from the ground game, I mean, like a big one is we definitely want to get an office. I think, fundraising is an absolute must. One of the things that Jared Polis absolutely ruined in this state was campaign finance laws. So as an individual, you can't give that much to a candidate. But you can give the county party a lot of money, and we can give candidates more money than individuals can. So, my big goal is to really ramp up our fundraising here in the county so that way we can give big lump sums of money to our candidates because that's going to, help get them over the finish line. I think, the other thing too is we want to be a part of the community. That's another big thing. I would say, when you look at, if you ever looked at Florida, one of the things that they did in Florida to make that state go from a purple state to a solidly red state is they went out and they registered voters.
Yeah.
I would love to go to a community day in Eaton or in Fort Lupton or in Greeley and to go set up a booth and have folks who want to come up and register to vote.
Who's the Pennsylvania guy? Scott
Pressler.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
He's great.
That guy is such a goober, but he is a freaking genius.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
And he did it so well. And it's like from the person you would least expect for
Exactly.
the Republican Party to pull that off. And it's like, he did it.
Yeah.
He did it. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like every Republican should model what he did.
Well, and I will tell you, talking to Britta Horn, who's running, she knows Scott Pressler, actually.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I've already been talking to her about that.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, whatever he did in Pennsylvania, bring him here. Let's do that
Seriously.
here. Let's get Republicans registered here in our county and CDA and start flipping this state.
And get those resources, I think, to every county.
Yeah, exactly.
Every Republican Party
Exactly.
in the state needs to.
Exactly. It should be a model that we do in every corner of this country. And it's a real shame that nobody in the Republican Party at the national level is willing to, build that infrastructure for us little guys down here.
And I'm so glad. I made this point for a while before it was popular, but I always said the only way to change the what do you call it? The ballot harvesting. So Republicans had traditionally been very against ballot harvesting, so they wouldn't even do it themselves. The problem is it's already legal.
Yeah.
So in order to change the law, you have to engage in it. So at least engage in it until you're in power so you can change the law. If you don't like the law, change it. Okay, that's fine. But you have to play that game. You're handicapping yourself.
Yeah. I think,
why would you not do that?
I think back in 2020, I remember it was a very unpopular thing. I remember in 2022 we started doing it, and I can tell you in 2024 we were definitely out there doing it. So we're getting with the times a little bit on that stuff.
For sure.
Because I mean in 2022 I remember when we were out knocking on doors for Barb, I would see them, drive up to people's homes, go knock on the door, they'd go inside and they'd come out with a ballot. And it was, and you knew they were doing that quite a bit. And, you talk about those districts where it's a 1,500 vote difference. I could see that making a difference.
Yeah, you get a team of even a few dozen people.
Exactly.
That absolutely makes a whole difference.
Exactly.
Okay, so then that's kind of your 2-year plan for the Weld County Republican Party. Where do you see yourself in 5, 10? Where do you see yourself going? Are you still holding on to the dream of your childhood dream, being president one day? Or
definitely not. That is a bizarre concept. My cousin said something. My little cousin was here over the weekend and said something to me like, if you run, I'll help you get Virginia Beach elected for you. And I'm like, could never. No, that's so bizarre. That's so far away. That's so distant. No.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I mean,
what's after this?
Yeah. I mean, I've really valued the legislative process down at the state capitol. So, I think where I'd want to end up is the state legislature at some point. Okay. But, I'm very happy with where I'm at in the Republican Party right now as the county chair. If more opportunities present themselves, great. Aside from that, I mean, I just got accepted to the University of Colorado, so I plan on going there, getting my bachelor's degree, and then probably pursuing a law degree. And we'll see where that ends up going. But
well, there's a story in the Bible about the talents. Okay, so like one person gets 1 talent, the other gets 2, the other gets 5. The guy with 1 buried his talent and never did anything with it. He didn't multiply it. The guy with 2 and 5 multiplied it and gave it back to the master. The master was very pleased. And so I think just doing as best as you can right now with what you're given. And by the way, it's a legitimate, it's very impressive, honestly. I'm very impressed by you. It's part of the reason I had you come on because, and even though you're younger than me, in a way, I admire you and what you've accomplished at such a young age. And even if there are bigger and greater aspirations down the road, doing excellently what's here in front of you right now, that is a necessary precursor to doing anything greater down the line. So just steward well what you have. Keep going. You're doing great. Is there anything else that you wanted to say or get out there while we're here? Any candidates that you want to shout out or bills that you hate that are making their way through the legislature?
There's a lot of bad down there, and there's certainly a lot of legislators I'd love to shout out. But I would just say, if there's anybody out there in Weld County or anywhere in Colorado that is a conservative or a Republican and wants to get involved with the county party or the state GOP and just make a difference in their community, their county, or their state, I'd be happy to show you the ropes, get you involved, have you come out and join us, come walk with candidates, come meet candidates, get involved with the process. I encourage folks to reach out to me, reach out to their local county GOPs, the state GOP, and just get involved, make a difference. I'm happy to show people that. So,
Heck yeah. Well, Hunter, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for doing this, and we'll have to do it again one of these days.
It'd be great. It was awesome coming on. Thank you.